History Notes podcast, product of the Education Department of the Greensboro History Museum. I'm Rodney Dawson, curator of education, and we created this podcast for educators in mind, but doesn't necessarily have to be a classroom educator. It could be a Sunday school teacher or homeschool. But you know, when I taught, I used to hate to do lesson plans, so I said, what's one thing I can do to ease that burden? And I think a lot of teachers can build lesson plans around this. And one of the goals is to capture history when it's happening now. And one of the big things that happened over the summer of 2020 was the death of George Floyd and the reckoning and the movement that was inspired drew from that, and which is why I have you here today. You were there or a major part of influencing folks that were there. And so I'm glad to have with us one of the organizers of the protest, Virginia Holmes. We have Justin Harrington, who was deeply involved and is an artist himself, and so particularly has a great question I'm waiting to ask you. And then we also have Miss Darlene McClinton.
Yes.
All right, okay, I said it right. But I'm gonna start with you, Miss McClinton, and I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. But I hadn't met you before this. But in talking to people like Philip Marsh and talking to Virginia Holmes and talking to another artist who's going to be featured in this exhibit, Ashley Griffin, your name came up. And then other folks were like, oh, I know her from the Arts Block. Or I know her, she taught me at A&T. So as what's coming to be like the go-to, not just the go-to person for this style of expression, how did you go up? Did you know that you were going to be such an influence in instructing and training folks for this kind of work?
I would start off by saying no. I did not know that. I'm just a person, I guess, that likes to live out my purpose. And I didn't even know I was going to be a teacher. So I'm originally from South Bronx, New York, was raised here in Greensboro, graduated from A&T, moved to DC, Aggie Pride, to get my master's from Howard. In the process, my head was kind of blown up. I was like 25 with a master's degree, moved to New York City, and didn't tell anybody, became homeless. And during that homeless process, that's a whole nother story, that's when the Spirit spoke to me and told me to live a life of service. That's what I was called to do, and you were going to be a teacher. You was going to teach at A&T. Was like a whole entire vision. Within a year, everything came to pass. I've been teaching at A&T for 10 years. I opened up the Artist Block in 2014. That vision was birthed into me when I lived in DC. So that's why it's such a unique business model. And I'm just really here to just live out my purpose and help as many people as possible. That's what I've been put on earth to do.
Now, were you in the streets on May 30th or May 31st?
No, the way that I was protesting was through public art. So I was out doing the one at Elsewhere. I did 3 in the city and been doing 3 in the city, and we worked with Philip with the One Love, and we just did Say It Loud. So every time it was a protest happening, I was out of town that weekend. So I would come back in and jump in as an artist, and that was my way of, contributing and letting people know, visually communicating about the protest.
So now when you go back to the classroom,
right, I go back to the classroom.
And there might be another George Floyd incident
Right.
that might draw thousands of people out.
Right.
Is that going to change the way you teach now or your approach?
I believe so. I work currently, I have a lot of jobs, but currently I'm the grants manager at Arts Greensboro, and one of the reasons why I took the position is because my goal was always to be in position to be able to help people. And be in position because you can't do change if you're not in that position to do it. So the president is a white woman, and the day the protest happened, we went to work on Monday. She pulled us in the office. She was very honest. She was like, I'm gonna be honest with you all. I didn't know what she wanted to talk about. She was like, I am a white woman. I've been privileged all my life. And the protest is happening, and Black Lives Matters is happening. Like, how do y'all feel about everything? And I was breaking everything down, telling her I just don't understand why people are getting killed by the color of their skin. What does the color of my skin have to do with you all to the point that you would want to kill somebody? And then I also mentioned to them that, like, if it was my brother or my father, I'd blow up the courthouse too. And I was very serious about it. And I am still very serious about something like that. So with me teaching online, because I've been teaching summer school, when I open up the first day of class, we're talking about different things, and I ask the students, how do you feel about the protests? How are you feeling about Black Lives Matter? What type of changes are you all going to make? I've started having that dialogue every chance I get with the students.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I know you got to go.
Yes, I do.
So we'll get you on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in
You're welcome.
contact with you. Why is this not a one-off, not a one and done?
Ooh.
Go ahead.
The truth is, it's because we never asked to be here, you know? It's almost as if I invited you to my house and asked you over for dinner just to shoot you dead at my kitchen table. I gave you the impression that you were important enough to me to come into my home. That may or may not even be my home. But I invited you over for this one cruel conversation, and it's to laugh at your life. It can't be a one-off thing. It can't be a one-time thing. It has to be a marathon that we're running. That's something that makes sense because it's so frequent that now we're seeing it. It's almost as if it's a closeted joke, like a sick joke of how many times can we rip this Band-Aid off this scab and open this wound before somebody does something. Let's make them mad enough. See, we knelt calmly with Kaepernick. We chose peace. It is nothing to say that the reason why these people are still out in Portland is because enough is enough. It can't be a one-off thing. Because like in our previous conversations that we have, you may have a son that one day I may have to do this for. They could be doing this for me one day. And I need the same energy across the board. And I love the Harriet Tubman analogy. People love to talk about how she let people to freedom till she died. She got pneumonia and died. And the people that she could not free did not know they were slaves, is what she said. And that was her, it is well with me. So it is well with me. I feel like it is necessary. It is my birthright to be here, to be present here. I didn't ask for this. It's not something I signed up for, but it is not done. This is only the beginning. I feel like this has been a long time coming. It's ironic we're listening to the song right now, but it's just true because now I feel like even more of like this air of attention that's being drawn to this carpet conversation, Like, dang, I just had my neighbor come out to me the other day on some weirdness, like, and speak to me for the first time. And I'm looking, the look. You'll get out. But it's like, all right, so you did something nice today. You spoke to a colored person. So you can go back and tell your people at the club, I spoke to a colored person. But can I come over your house? Can my kid play with your kid? So it can't be a one-off thing. Until that is the normalcy that has been created does not include normal for Black people or brown people or Asian Americans. Because also, too, the thing that needs to be discussed here, that this is not just a Black or white issue. This is an issue of culture. This is an issue of people not knowing their history, not knowing their rights. The works that we're going to talk about that we do and are putting our efforts into is to clear the air, clear the smoke about this context of what really it is that we're doing when we say that when we're shouting no justice, no peace. Yeah.
Now, Justin, you were out in the streets demonstrating. So I want you to talk to us a little bit briefly about who you are and what it was like for you out there. Then I want you to transition into you as an artist.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me what drew you out there and what was it like?
I mean, for me, it's like my whole career as an artist has been based in for me, it's the fact that my entire career as an artist is built upon the fact that I'm trying to empower my Black people. There's a reason that I've been bridging the gap between folk and rap, the gap, because they're the same thing. Folk just means the music of the people. That's what rap is, the illest folk music of all time. So I've been around the world, I've done a lot of things, and I've always been fighting. And so because before George Floyd, we had Marcus Deion Smith in Greensboro killed by the Greensboro Police Department at Folk Fest, which I performed at. So what would I look like You know what I'm saying? Spreading this message, and then I don't stand up when it's time for me to stand up. So I stood up when it was time to host a concert where we could get eyes on the Marcus Smith case and get people at his vigil. And so when it came time for a protest happening in Greensboro, North Carolina, I wasn't in contact with nobody. I had resources. I had masks, I had waters, I had milks, and I said I need to go outside and make sure that we don't have no brown people get hurt today. That's how I felt. And so I went down there. I didn't know nobody, and I hear the crowd. I'm just like, all right, bet. I'm taking this. I got water, mask, all that. And I'm walking up, and then I see Virginia. And I was like, oh, okay. That's my people. And I look around, and I see more of my people.
So
and I'm just like,
y'all knew each other before?
Yeah, we've known each other
We were in
for...
the pipeline.
Oh,
Yeah. And because we've met at shows, and I performed at her shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so when I saw my people, I was like, oh, okay, bet. And I played my position. And then when Virginia wasn't around, I played my position and I led some marches. And when it was time to speak, I used my training and everything that I've done in my career to play my position. Because it's not about me, but if nobody was standing up, it had to be. That's how I felt.
Amen.
All right. Now, what kind of artist are you?
I'm a rapper, I'm a banjo player, I'm a producer, I'm an actor, I'm a writer. I do a lot of things.
Now, we spoke before,
Mhm.
and you said something that I thought was pretty profound. And you said, in what we're doing, we're talking about the exhibit, or in your work, you said it's important not to separate the artist from the art.
Right.
All right, explain that to me.
I think it's important to not separate the artist from the art, because the art is of the artist. The art is the representation of how the artist feels. And I think that when it comes to hosting a fundraising or having an event or something like that, people want to have art present, but they don't understand that artists are fighting more than they're creating. What people have to understand is that this is not an easy road. We are Black-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. We are the industry. We are fighting against capitalism. We are fighting against white supremacy, and just trying to express ourselves and express the fact that we do not accept what is laid in front of us. And so when people invite artists to the table, when people, you get the body, you get the voice, you get the soul, you get the breath, all of that along with the art. Our art is not a commodity. It is a part of us. And so if you want the art there, we have to be present there as well, because we are going to lend the context of the art. Because I understand that a lot is up to interpretation, but it needs to be understood what I meant when I do anything.
So when you submit work, we're going to see your history. We're going to see your passion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you have a piece that's going to be displayed in the upcoming exhibit.
Thank you. Yes.
Right. And but I want you to talk to us, and I'm sure we can have it edited in where we're seeing it as you talking about it now. But talk to us while there's no name. Talk to us while there's no, I'm not an artist, but talk to us why it was, you seem to leave it up to others' interpretation.
So my good brother here, Justin, and I, we do a different style of art. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm an abstract, non-objective artist. And that's, I think, where we have this mutual respect and love for each other, where it's like the art that we create is so provocative in a way that, even though his is subjective and mine is non-objective, it's like, you still feel something, and for me, that's what I go for. I go for the intention every time, because I use bright colors doesn't necessarily mean that I'm happy. I painted that mural a couple days after being shot at by rubber bullets and tear gas 3 times in a row after doing nothing but shouting no justice, no peace, after screaming, please don't shoot. We're peaceful. This is them. This is them, and this is us. And, having the proof to do so, Justin was there with me both days in a row, and he'll tell you, if we could be that transparent, the look on my face, how many times I made eye contact with you, shaking my head like, we might not come home tonight. It's like, just not from our intention, but we're seeing, like I said, the voices of our brothers and sisters. So like that energy, not being able to have that conversation is why, like, I feel like that piece had to be made. It didn't need a name. It didn't need a label. I tagged it for the first time in years. I haven't tagged artwork in years because I don't believe in it. I want you to see that this is something that was created during a time for a reason, but I'm not going to give you my reason.
Right.
Because no matter how much I shouted and lost my voice, screaming no justice, no peace, what happened the next week?
Right.
In the following week, We're finding bodies hanging in the wind. It's still that same strange fruit we smell from the trees. See, the thing about it is that's the conversation that's not being had, is that I'm very aware of what is happening and that this is important and that this is work that's going to continue, because still to this day, it's a sick joke the world is playing on this black community where we're disposable. And people still to this day, no matter how college educated I may be, won't know that the dissension of the African American community is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are over 30 inalienable human rights that we don't even look at, that would really change the scope of our thought process as a culture if we just knew that one of those rights was our culture and fought for that. But they don't want that conversation to be had. It takes a covering like this, a safe space, an arc like the Artist Block, to platform for artists like myself and Demeanor, to put that battery in our backs, to remind us every single day when we see more kids coming in, needing a shelter, to have the conversations that they can't have with their parents, that is important.
And if I may, real quick,
Yeah.
it points to the fact that artists are not a monolith. Black people are not a monolith. We do not all feel the exact same way about any given thing, you know? Just because I feel like I have to attach my face because they need to look me in the eye. When I, you know what I'm saying, when there were cops threatening me over like, I'm whatever. I feel that I have to stand on, you know what I'm saying? Because I was raised by powerful black women, and so I feel like I just gotta represent, you feel me? And so I think that that points to the fact that she didn't put her face on that piece where we put our, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes multiple villages to create an empire for those children. Mm-hmm. And every village doesn't have to see it completely eye to eye on everything, because the overall cause is the empowerment of black people and the destabilization of white supremacy.
It was very intentional. It was very intentional on purpose.
So different perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you, Justin, I'm asking you to work on something that you could submit here.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a student, if I'm a museum goer, if I'm someone that's just frequenting the website, what's the message you want to get out to them about your participation or about this moment? What do you want people to take away?
What I would like people to take away is that this is not a moment, and I would like people to understand that this is continuing, and it's not a one-off because George Floyd was not a one-off. It's not a one-off because it's not just police brutality that we're up against. You know what I'm saying? We're up against every aspect of colonialism, of genocide, of slavery, of privatized prisons. Like, if you're gonna take anything from any piece that I give, is as the audience or whatever, it would be that I am shining a light on what I'm focusing on. I can't focus on everything. What are you going to shine a light on? It's about the Olympic runner that runs with the flame and then puts the flame in the fire and then keeps running to the next place, and then that's what I feel like a song is. That's what I feel like a piece is. Every time you see it, oh yeah, it's right there. Like where it continues. Remember, listen, activate, mobilize.
And Virginia, I'm gonna get us out of here on this one. I'm gonna give you 3 words, and I'm gonna ask you to connect them. Okay? Warnersville, Hampton Homes, Elm Street.
Social experiment. It was a project. It's 1865. Warnersville was established. 1808. Greensboro was established. Warnersville was annexed into Greensboro. It was its own place. It was a place of being. So you have to look at the fact that they had to create legislature to make what happened there legal. And those first families, my auntie, my great aunt who's still alive, was one of the first families put in there with promise of a future that they did not receive. Their kids were subjected to that in the 60s, put in there after those communities were established, after the gentrification happened, after the annexation. So now I'm looking at the history, because it's also in the Greensboro Public Library. But I'm looking at the fact that now you have a cycle. So you have Elm Street, that's this White Wall Street, right across from where the blacks were allowed to be and thrive at one point in time. Where I'm going to put this here, the rent's too high for you, but I'm going to take everything you got. And then I'm gonna try to sell it back to you and put up these project homes. And this is gonna be subsidized living for you. And this is where you and your kids gonna be, and y'all gonna be fine. But then the crack pandemic hit. Because this ain't the first pandemic. COVID ain't the first pandemic. Man-made pandemic. Let's talk about it. I mean, that's the conversation. So it is a social experiment when now I'm born in the 90s. I'm not talking about 400 years ago when they brought us on the boats involuntarily. I'm talking about the last 60 years. My aunt just turned 67. So 60s, Hampton Homes, 70s, 80s, 90s. Now we in the 2000s. What else could it be? Social experiment. 2020s. Social experiment. So for the first time, I had to go tell my great auntie after the protests happening. Because to her, she was just baffled. She was like, girl, I had to explain to her, because auntie, I don't think you know who you voted for when you was allowed to vote. I don't think you realize that there were people before you who made rules and regulations on your life that caused this to happen. Remember when you were strung out? Remember when you were exposed to this? And like showing her this, for her to turn around and tell me, I never knew. That's why. So if you're talking about that joke, it's just that focal point of, listen, this is like a beat, like just this petri dish, and we're all in this petri dish, and they're just dropping in these samples of why it is important to keep these groups of people. But then why is it just this group of people that you're fearful of? Because the truth. And I think that's what part two, the truth about the history and why this community was so important, and what it represented and what it had inside of it.
Have you ever heard that joke where it's like, imagine, it's a riddle. It's like, imagine you're in a box with no windows and no doors. Imagine you're in a box with no windows and no doors. This is exactly where you are. This is who you are. You're in a box with no windows and no doors. Imagine you're in that box. How do you get out of the box? No window, there's no door, there's no crack. You can't break out of it. How do you get out? You stop imagining that you're in the box. It's petri dish. It's like,
this is a whole concept, and it's something that was birthed off of an ideology of, if good intentions were a person, it would be white America. I had good intentions when I stripped the Native Americans and gave them syphilis and smallpox. I had good intentions.
we about to turn up.
I had good intentions. Like, can we just? And I'm so sorry that we're pressed for time, but that's like, I told you, like, this is one of the things that, like, if we're gonna have it, I would love to have this conversation. This has to happen, but like, it's one of those things where, like, our education and our perspective didn't come from school. This came from real life, just seeing it firsthand.
It came from being outside
just
years
being
before.
outside years before. This is my life's work. Like I said, I'm 27. If my great aunt was never in Hampton Homes, I would have never known. Like having my predecessors here before me, my peers here before me. That's still a level of privilege that I never experienced. A 2-parent household, a college degree. I didn't experience that because I didn't have that. I had to work at 13. So like, when I'm coming and standing beside my brother and sister, and I'm getting an opportunity like this, I can't not sit here and say that I know for a fact this is happening, because I'm here in front of you and I survived it.
And we have to say to the kids or whatever that's watching this, you don't need permission to do the right thing.
No, you're not alone.
That's it.
You're not alone.
Get in the good trouble.
What do you say?
Get in the good trouble.
Do first, ask for permission.
It's like
apologize later.
You're in trouble. You're
already in trouble.
Black kid, you sitting in class right now.
You
they gonna
in trouble,
tell you
bro.
You're like this. You're a troubled student. You can't ask questions. You're black. I'm a product of all that. I'm a product of the advanced class, and then I know
black.
you don't need
all
permission to do the right thing, and you don't need 1,000 people with you. That's what you have to understand. It was 3, 4, 5 of us sitting in a house figuring out how we was gonna do something, and then we did it, and we shook pavement. 4 of us. It don't take many people. Don't even ask for permission.
No.
Like, don't be dumb. You feel me?
Because
Like,
you never
eat your
know who's
vegetables.
gonna be there when you show up. You never know. You might just show up in the middle of a protest and look to your left or your right.
Oh, that's Virginia.
Oh, that's Justin.
Well,
I'm good.
we do need to go on,
I know.
which means we have to do this again, and perhaps again. But don't I say get into good trouble. I was making reference to John Lewis.
Yeah.
And but I don't want you to get to the point where you're as known as John Lewis and then forget about us. So when I
I don't
call
think
on
that's
you,
possible with
when
the
I
DNA.
when I call on you in 10 years, hey, can we do another interview? Don't have your people call my people.
I'm gonna have justice
Right.
people call
Yeah.
people.
No.
I'll put you
I'm
in touch
people.
with my Savannah.
Yeah.
She'll set it up.
Nah, but I can see you going places, and it's not even about, it's about what you were able to do here. And like you said, you didn't wait for permission, you didn't wait to get a camera on you. You just did it because you knew it was the right thing to do, and so that's what's gonna make it last. So thank you, Virginia Holmes, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more of you. We're gonna see you in the exhibit, and thank you, Justin Harrington.
I'm not worthy.
I'm looking forward to whatever you contribute as a creative expression to explain this time for us. Talented group and the group that was before us. So this is just the beginning. So thank you very much for being on History Notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.